Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram. The values that we developed are instrumental in shaping the way that we live our life, as well as the goals that we choose and the goals that we attain. If we live a life based on values that have been chosen by us, that have been intelligently thought of and selected, if we're able to hold ourselves to those values, then we live a life that enables us to achieve goals that are in line with those values as well. And in this 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is pointing out to us values that are classified as divine, values that can help us in our journey, values that can help us to evolve, to grow, and ultimately to achieve the highest goal in life. We are not to forget that the purpose of these values is not just to make life easier for us, although that's a great benefit, because who doesn't want a pleasant, easy life, or a life that is free from strife and suffering? And even though these values will allow us to live that kind of life, ultimately what they are doing is preparing us to achieve the highest goal that is pointed out. That is to know our absolute oneness with the Supreme. To know, in the language of the Gita, that I am one with the Lord and everything is in me. That there is nothing that exists differently from me. And that understanding of non-duality, that understanding that everything is this one infinite blissful truth, that is what these values are preparing us for. But even if that's not within our, even if that's not what we're thinking about at the moment, these are still enabling us to live a positive, healthy, joyous life. And so far we have seen the first verse and half of the second verse, or three qualities from the second verse, up to the last thing we discussed last week was this value of akrodha, the absence of anger, or the ability to control one's anger, the ability to bring it within one's control. Now the next value is something that can sometimes sound quite frightening. But Lord Krishna is not giving it here to frighten us. That value is tyaga. In Sanskrit, this word tyaga means renunciation, giving up. And why it's frightening? Because generally for most people, we spend our lives doing the opposite. We spend our lives acquiring. That is from the get-go. That is our purpose. we are acquiring knowledge, we are acquiring skills, we are acquiring relationships. Everything is sort of built for this purpose. Our idea is we want to keep getting. But what is pointed out here is that as much as acquiring is important, it's never pointed out as a value. Here, renunciation is pointed out as a value. And that's because it is something that we have to learn to do in the right way. And when we learn to do it in the right way, it helps us to evolve. What exactly do we mean by renunciation? So earlier, we saw this value of dana, right, of charity. So that's already been mentioned. So here, we're not talking about giving up something that belongs to us. There are two things that we can give up. Either we can give up something that we think of as mine, or we give up that which we think of as I. These are our two options. I can't give up that which doesn't even belong to me. I can't be very generous with that which I don't have. So I'll say I'm making a big donation to charity, but I don't have any money myself. How are you donating? Somebody else will give, but I'm making the donation. So when we give, it's always what we have. And this idea of charity is that we learn to give up. We learn to remove this strong sense of possessiveness that we have over our whatever it may be in our life, our wealth, our possessions. But here, we're not talking about that kind of charity. Here, what is meant is that if we can't do that physical kind of charity, right? If we can't actually give something that belongs to us, whether it's wealth, whether it's sharing knowledge, sharing time, if we can learn to mentally renounce that sense of ownership, of possession, then we will have developed this tyaga. One thing is to physically renounce, right? To give away everything that I own and to just live with the bare minimum. 3 sets of clothes, whatever basics I need in my house, whatever else. Right? Whatever I don't need, I don't keep. I give it away. So people have different ways of doing this, right? So they'll look at everything they have and they'll say, okay, if I haven't looked at it or thought of it or used it in the last 6 months, then I will get rid of it, because obviously that means I don't need it. Nowadays, this idea of minimalism is also popular, but the opposite is also true. Nowadays, people want to keep everything as well. So tyaga doesn't mean physically just giving everything to charity and living in a bare room with one mattress on the floor and some enough clothes to get me through. And that's it, nothing extra. Tyaga means if I can renounce that mental sense of possessiveness, then that is what is called renunciation here. And why this physical renunciation is emphasized, physical giving up of something, is because when we do actually physically give something up, then we are able to understand the hold that it has for us mentally. Because sometimes we are very good at we're very good at deceiving ourselves. So I'll say, you know what, I don't mind. I use everything while it's here, but if it's taken away from me, no problem. I will not be disturbed in the slightest. But since I have it, I might as well use it. And then somebody actually does take something away, or I actually do lose something, and my mind gets so disturbed. So when we physically give something up, what it does is it allows us to see how strong that mental attachment is. But if we can't do that physical renunciation, then we can at least do this mental renunciation. And actually, it just makes things easier, because if I can mentally recognize that these things are not in my control, whatever I think of as my possession, if I can let go of that sense of ownership, then that mental burden that I have will be reduced. The mental burden of looking after something. I'll give you an example. Okay, say you go on holiday somewhere, or you go to some very scenic place, a very beautiful sort of place in nature. Okay, and you're looking at that beautiful view, mountains or waterfalls or whatever it may be. You look at that, and while you're looking at it, you enjoy it so much. You're able to just be at peace in that scene, whatever it is, and you just enjoy it. And when the time comes to leave, you think, wouldn't it be nice to be able to remember this place? So you take a photo of that scene, and you get home, and you find an artist, and you say, listen, this is, such a beautiful place. Can you recreate this scene for me in a painting? And I will. You buy it. Okay, so they paint this scene beautifully, that same thing which you saw when you went there. They paint it for you, it's done, so you have it framed. You look for the best spot in your house, you test it everywhere. Finally, you find the ideal space, and you hang it up there. Now, if anything were to happen to that painting, how would you feel? But when you're standing there in nature and you're looking at that mountain or that waterfall or that forest, there is absolutely no sense of possession. You don't feel any ownership. You are just able to enjoy it. When you come home and you keep that painting in your house, now when anyone comes over, you want them to appreciate it. So you bring everyone and you say, look at this, isn't it beautiful? And if for some reason somebody doesn't say, then you feel very bad. If something happens to that painting, by mistake it gets scratched or something damaged, then how do you feel? The difference is the sense of ownership. That's all. And that sense of ownership places this mental baggage. So tyaga means I give that up. And the fact is, as is repeatedly pointed out to us in so many different ways, that whatever we have in this life, whatever we enjoy, out of that, nothing stays with us. So if we are able to let go of it within our lifetime, then we are making things much more pleasant for ourselves. There is this very wealthy person, amassed a lot of wealth, but very humble, very giving person. And before he passed away, he gave a substantial chunk of that wealth to charity. And somebody asked him, you have children, you can pass it on to them, you can gift it to them. Why are you giving away so much of it in charity? It's not that you don't have family, who could do with it. And he said, if I cannot set an example for them, and I pass it on to them and expect them to give it, when I haven't been able to give it in my lifetime, there is no chance that they will feel inspired to give. If I cannot let go of it myself, how can I expect when I give it to someone, they will feel I can now pass this on? This is in the world, right? If we are able to let go of this sense of ownership, how it will help us, how it helps for a seeker, how this idea of renunciation helps is, it is in fact key, because what is said is that immortality is attained by renunciation. If you want the best, then you have to pay the price, right? There is a difference between shopping at a budget clothing store and shopping at somewhere like Selfridges. You don't go into Selfridges expecting to pay what you would expect to pay in that budget clothing store. For a seeker, we are looking for immortality. We are looking for the infinite. And therefore, if we are not prepared to give up what is required, it will be difficult for us to attain that. And ultimately, the renunciation that is required is of one's own ego. How do we develop this courage to give up, rather? What is said is, develop dispassion and develop devotion. If I have both of these, I will not be concerned about how much I can acquire. I will not be concerned about what I will lose. Because if I have dispassion, I can focus on my goal. And if I have devotion, I will be freed from anxiety and fear. This is the ideal. Of course, as we develop those things, we need stopgap solutions. But ultimately, to overcome and to be able to renounce freely, this is what will help us. There's a very nice story which I always remember. There was a young student who was listening to his guru, his teacher, talk about another seeker. And what the teacher was saying is, this person was so intent on God realization, on self-realization. He had this burning desire. So he left everything and he went to do austerity, to do sadhana, to realize the truth. And whenever he needed something, it was provided to him. He was living in absolute wilderness, but say he needed food, somehow someone would pass by, would see him, and would give it to him. He needed clothes, someone would pass, and they would be able to give it to him. Whatever he needed somehow would come. So the student got very inspired and said, "This is so great." So he went to the teacher and he said, "If I also go, will I also get everything? Will I get food? Will I get clothing if I need it?" And the teacher said, "You won't get it." So he's very upset. He said, "How come he's gone, he's getting everything? Why will I not get everything?" So the teacher said, "He has gone in search of God. You are going in search of food and clothes. You will not get them." Nowadays, none of us are in a position to give up everything and go wandering and depend like this entirely on the Lord. But in our day-to-day life, whenever there are worries, we can try and renounce those. And the renunciation is at the feet of the Lord through devotion and through prayer. To develop this ability to give up, whether it's in transaction, whether it is in my sadhana, to give up negativities, to give up wrong notions, this is a value that is to be cultivated. And when it is cultivated, the result in one's mind will be shanti. The result not only of this renunciation, but also of akrodha, of giving up anger, of everything else that has been pointed out so far. The result of that is mental peace. This, as long as there is anger in the mind, there will not be peace. But as long as there is ultimately desire, there will not be peace. We will constantly have something going on in the mind, some worry, something. So this is not physical quiet. Shanti means not physical peace, but mental peace. This shanti is what we are trying to attain through everything that we do. When we start our sessions with prayer and we say Om Shanti, 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 this is what we're saying, may there be peace. When we finish and we say Om Shanti, may that peace remain, may it continue. May there be no obstruction outside, but here within, because outside is not in my control. What other people are doing, what is happening in the world, is not necessarily in my control. But my own mind, I can develop this peace. And if there is, how do we know? How do we know how to develop this peace, how to notice what's going on in our own mind? Is if we are physically quiet, then we can come to understand the state of our mind. If we're physically constantly busy doing something, we don't generally have time to sit and think and come to know what is going on within the mind. So if we can take time out every day, just for a few minutes, to be with ourselves, we slowly come to understand what is going on in our mind. And through that, we come to understand what are the solutions to any obstacles we are facing. How is it that we can deal with whatever is going on in the mind to actually attain that peace? So this mental shanti is as a result of many other things, but it can be cultivated also. We can instill that peace, invoke that peace within ourselves. And sometimes it's helpful just to be physically quiet also. So with the body, but also with the speech. So practice of monam, of keeping silence, also can help us to develop this mental peace. Because sometimes, you know what happens? Sometimes we say, okay, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to be silent for an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening or something. And in spite of not opening our mouths and speaking, in the mind, there is this constant chatter going on. Some people, we all have this running commentary that is going on in the mind. It can be very entertaining and interesting, but constantly something is running. And when we speak, we don't have time to sit and notice what is that commentary exactly. If we physically keep silent, then we notice what's going on. And when we are aware of what's going on, it starts to slow down that thought flow. And the idea behind physical silence is to attain this mental quietude. It's not just to be physically quiet, but to still be very disturbed in the mind. This physical should lead to this mental peace. And the first step to physical peace is to keeping this silence. One of the most positive things that we can practice is the next value, apaishunam. Apaishunam means not speaking ill of others, not pointing out what is wrong in others. Now, for some people, their way of helping is to point out what's wrong, right? Sometimes it's a very positive thing. In order to make any improvement, you identify a problem, but you also identify solutions, right? So this apaishunam is not in this way being helpful by helping people to understand what they may need to improve upon. Although even that, actually, we should let people discover by themselves, because nobody likes to have anything wrong pointed out to them. If somebody else comes and tells me, this is wrong with you, this is wrong with you, you always do this, you always do that, you never do this, we never take it well. Immediately there is this defensive instinct. No, I don't do that, I'm not like that. Or I only did it because I did it because of this, I did it because of that. Actually, that it's safer if we all do that process ourselves. This apaishunam, whether in front of that person, if that person is not present, even worse, not to speak ill of others. Because one thing is, even when we identify something that we think is negative in others, generally speaking, we have only seen and understood a fraction of that person and that person's life. We are in no position to judge a person for the way that they speak and the way that they act. Generally, we don't know people's history, we don't know their current circumstance, we don't know their pressures, we don't know their experiences. And yet somehow we feel qualified to start pointing out what is wrong in other people. Actually, there is no guarantee that even if I see something, some character trait, I see some behavior, there is no guarantee that I have understood that correctly. So for me to then go and comment on it there is no purpose to it. Right? There is no purpose to making a comment about something negative that I have seen in someone else. Sometimes we don't even need to see something negative. Sometimes the positive itself, people will take as an excuse to speak ill about others. Somebody is very generous. The thing, if we're determined to see ill in someone, there is very little that can stop us. That person is very generous. We'll say, yeah, they just want everyone to know how generous they are. That's why they keep doing all these things. That person is very kind. So you say, no, they just want everyone to like them. That's why they're always nice. If we're determined to see ill, no matter what that person does or says, we will find some excuse. So this, to speak ill, is just to expose our own lack of understanding. Sometimes we will see things that are wrong. We will see people behaving in a way that we do not agree with, goes against our beliefs. This will happen. In fact, it is guaranteed. But the thing is, when we start talking about it, it becomes worse. Not for that person, but for us. Because when we say something, what we say has an effect on how we think. What we think affects what we say, but what we say, what we keep repeating, it starts to affect how we think. It also affects how other people think. Nowadays, if something is repeated often enough, it is more often than not, or sometimes at least, it is accepted as fact. Why? Just because it's been said enough times. So the power of speech should not be underestimated. We shouldn't say, oh, it was just once I said something about that person. That just once can have an impact that we also may not be able to foresee. In the Bhagavatam, it's actually said that neither should we criticize nor should we praise in excess. So you may think, okay, if I don't speak ill of others, then I should always find nice thing to say. I should always compliment people. I should always say this person is very good, that person is very good. Actually, it says you don't need to do either. Because when we praise or we insult, it's based on our opinion. And generally that changes. It's not a fixed thing. So if I say something and I have to go back on it later, that is not convenient for me. And if I don't say it, then my opinion may not be as fixed. I'm open to understanding things and beings as they are. So when we do see people behaving or people expressing these kind of negative traits, qualities, what can we do in the face of that if we're not allowed to say that if we're not allowed to talk about people? In fact, this apeshunam is just to indicate that very when it's completely unconstructive, when basically gossip, don't do that. But if we do see something wrong, what should our response to that be? If we do see people suffering, if we do see people acting in a negative way, then our response to the world at large should be daya. This is the next value. Daya bhuteshu. Compassion or tenderness towards other beings. Because nobody is living in this world alone. At the moment, we may not have as much contact with other people as we usually would, right? But we are not in this world alone, and we will have to interact with people. So what should our attitude be? The first thing that was said was, have this ahimsa, right? We already spoke about ahimsa, meaning don't have this thought of harming or violence, of hurting anyone, basically. Don't do anything with this intention. So that was a negative instruction. What is the positive instruction? Be compassionate. Develop compassion towards other beings. Sometimes when we study Vedanta, what it requires of us is to see the world as it is and everything in it as temporary, as finite, as limited, as illusory. And therefore, if it's not properly understood, or if it's not taken in the right way, then often people say, it leads to, it can lead to callousness. So we become very callous towards other people. We become harsh, we become uncaring. Because if somebody is suffering, you say, anyway, it's your body is not real, your mind is not real, what's wrong with you? Why are you suffering? So this is, in fact, obviously not the response, right, that we should be developing. As pointed out here, our response to others is compassion. The beautiful quote by Pujya Gurudev, he says, in life, to deal with others, when handling others, use your heart. When handling yourself, use your head. So when other people are going through sorrow, other people are suffering, we respond with our heart. We are compassionate towards them. We are caring. We are kind. This is what we want to be. If we ourselves are going through something difficult, yes, compassion is also cared for. We have to be compassionate towards ourselves. But as a seeker, that is an opportunity to inquire. to use our intellect and to rationally analyze what is going on. But when it comes to other people, what is emphasized here is to have this tenderness, as Gurudev says in the commentary. And what will allow us to act in this way is if we are able to develop love towards other beings. And that will happen if we are able to see oneness in all. If we are able to see ourselves or to see that divinity in all people, then we can love all. And compassion requires that I feel that I am big enough to give to all unstintingly. Compassion requires that I don't feel insecure in my giving. That I feel I can love all and I will not lose anything, I will only gain. I can give to all, I can be kind to all. And what I am is enough to allow me to do that. So to really be compassionate, this understanding has to be there within ourselves. We can give, right? We can have empathy, we can have compassion, even if we have our own personal needs and desires. But the fewer those needs and desires are, the more we are able to give of ourselves to others. Because I'm not worried that I have to hold something back. I'm not worried that I also have to think of what do I gain. So if I can develop this understanding that I am big enough in who I really am, then I can be compassionate towards everyone and everything. And this understanding is what Vedanta is trying to give us. That there is no limitation in who I am. Therefore, even when I see others, I can act in a way that reflects that absence of limitation. I can give and I can love as much as required, and more than that. And we only have to look at examples of saints like Puja Gurudev to see this. That even when physically not in the best condition, he could continue to give so much to the people around him. Because there is no personal worry about what will I get. So when we love, when we're able to see ourselves in the other, then this compassion towards all beings is possible. And it doesn't say human beings, Bhuteshu means towards all beings. So there are some beings that we are very much opposed to. Some people have great fear of some creatures. So at least we can not harm them, right? In the simplest sense, to have compassion toward all beings. If I'm scared of spiders and I see a spider in my house, I can put it outside of the window instead of killing it. This is also compassion. To be able to support someone through difficulty, through grief, That is also compassion. To be able to give to somebody whom I don't know, that is compassion. So this is daya bhuteshu. Then, very interesting, the next one is aloluptvam. This word itself is very nice. Aloluptvam. Aloluptvam means for these senses to be undisturbed. So Shanti was referring to the mind. This is referring to our senses. So say you're trying to concentrate, okay? You are listening to this talk, or you're doing something. You're trying to concentrate. And somebody starts cooking something. And that smell of that food starts wafting towards you. Food that you like, okay? Not food that you don't like. Food that you like, that you really enjoy. And you are hungry. So you're trying to concentrate, and the smell keeps coming. And you think, oh, that smells really good. No, but I must focus. And smell is one of those things that you can't just, you can put earphones in, you can close your eyes, you can keep your hands to yourself, but you can't close your nose. So aloluptvam means I have the ability to sit down and not start searching after that lovely smell, even though I may be distracted by it. I can control my senses, in other words. Even when objects are perceived, I don't have to get distracted. In other words, discipline of the senses. And this we need all the time, right? To discipline yourself while you're working, not to constantly reach for your phone, not to constantly get up and do something, not to get distracted. This aloluptvam is this discipline of the senses. What happens when we practice ahimsa and compassion? How is that expressed when we interact with people? This is described in the next value of mardavam. Mardavam means softness or gentleness. Mriduta. This mardava is such a beautiful thing. This is, again, not physically soft, right? You're not, it doesn't mean if you have a loud voice naturally, then you have to suddenly start speaking very softly. Then everyone will start saying, what? I can't hear you. So mardavam is not this physical, whether it's your body or your speech, to suddenly make yourself very soft. Mardavam is this mental gentleness that is expressed then in our transaction with others. The example that comes to mind is if you read the Ramcharitmanas, this is constantly how Tulsidas ji describes Lord Rama. That everything about him is mridu. The way he speaks is very gentle. The way he moves is so gentle. He himself, he is komala padagami. He is walking on these very soft feet in the forest barefoot. But that softness, again, is not to yield to things, right? Gentleness and softness is not to give in or to yield to things. If we stay with this example of Lord Rama, his entire life was lived by his principles. So he was unflinching, unyielding on that. So it's not that if somebody asks me, then I'm ready to do anything. I can stick with my principles. But in the way that I interact with people, I can be gentle. I can be soft. Soft means you're not giving bruises to other people. When do people get bruised? When they suddenly hit something hard and they themselves are soft. So when you're able to accomplish what you need, but you are not hurting anyone in the process, you're not being cruel or hard in your speech or your action. There is no sense of threat from such a person. When someone displays this gentleness, we don't feel threatened by them. So this mriduta is in this sense that in one's transactions, there is this complete kind of, you don't feel that you have been hurt in any way when you speak with or interact with such a person. And what will also happen is, then there will be this hrihi. Hrihi is the next value. Hrihi means modesty. So there is no kind of excessive boasting about oneself, about who one is, about what one has done. Sometimes when you meet people, this is the only thing that you will hear. Who they are, who they know, what they've done. And we don't feel like talking to such people also. If they're only interested in themselves and telling you how great they are. Whereas you meet someone who's interested and who wants to ask questions and who is modest about what they themselves have done, that modesty itself also becomes attractive to us. Which is not to say that we shouldn't be proud about what we've done and what we've achieved. Because sometimes we can go the opposite way, right? Sometimes you don't even want to talk about what's been done or what's been achieved. So this is not that. But to have that sense of modesty, and that will come, when will there not be any arrogance? When we don't feel that I alone am responsible for everything that I have accomplished, everything that I have achieved. I alone have done it. When we are able to see how much others have contributed to who we are, to what we've done, to how much we have achieved, then this modesty will be there. Gurudev used to say that humility is a very funny thing. The moment you say you have it, you've lost it. So if you say, I'm a very humble person, you shouldn't have to point it out. If you have to point it out, it means that actually, really speaking, that humility is not genuine. People will be able to see it. People will be able to see that this person is not proud, is not arrogant about what they have achieved. So he. Then he mentions achapalam. So these, if you look, it's interesting to see the connections between these different values. So we had shanti at the mental level, aluluptvam at the sense level, and achapalam is at the physical level. Achapalam means this absence of physical restlessness. Some people, when you see them, they're constantly fidgeting, touching their face. And nowadays we know how much we shouldn't touch our face. And only when somebody tells you don't touch your face, then you become aware of actually how much you do it. But some people, we find it very difficult to sit still. So always we'll be doing, especially, people who have glasses are always doing, touching this, that, touching your face. But otherwise also, somebody is doing something to their hair, somebody is doing, scratching their nose or scratching their ear or touching their arm, and some physical restlessness is there. So achapala means to be able to just be still. And this is also a discipline, right? This is something that we can practice. So this is at the physical level. Now, in the next verse, the third verse, these first quality, these other qualities are also spoken of elsewhere. The first quality that he mentions is tejaha. Teja is, teja means light, brilliance. So this brilliance, the first thing to say is this is not physical brilliance. It's not to say that somebody has very clear skin and is shining always and looks very healthy in their body. This is not just taking care of the physical, one's own physical self. This teja is that inner brilliance that comes. And I think for this, if you look at pictures of people like Ramana Maharishi, of our Swami Tapovanji Maharaj, of Pujya Gurudev, of these saints, and there is, despite the simplicity of what they're wearing and the way that they conduct themselves, there is this brilliance. There is this inner glow. There is this peace that you can see. And this is this teja. And you can see it in the way that somebody conducts themselves. And why you see it is because there is no conflict within that person. There is this absolute kind of straightforwardness, as we discussed, the practice of satyam. All of these things will result in this brilliance, this teja. Otherwise, we know what happens, right? If we do something that we feel is wrong, then our energy also gets dissipated. We also feel tired. We feel drained. And that physical tiredness is, when it's a mental tiredness also, then this teja is gone. There can be physical tiredness, but if that mental brilliance is there, it will still show on a person. So teja, the ability to live up to one's values, to live up to one's knowledge, this will all result in this brilliance, this physical or this vigor, as Gurudev says. And one of the things that can help us to achieve that, what is one of the things that takes up a lot of energy, amongst many things. One thing is when we hold grudges, when we hold on to old wrongs that we feel people have done, and therefore the value that is next given is kshama. Kshama means forgiveness. Akrodha was already said, right? So when anger arises, to be able to quiet it, to be able to kind of let go of it and to not express that anger, that was said. Kshama, there are different types of forgiveness that are described. And what is said is the best type is to not feel offended at all. The best type of forgiveness that we can practice is if somebody comes to apologize for something and we have not taken offense in the first place, then there is no need for forgiveness. That is the best response, it is said. Next best is if as soon as that person apologizes, I can say, it's okay, I forgive you. Next best is, it may take some time, but we are able to forgive. And sometimes we are unable to forgive at all. That is not forgiveness. It's not the worst, it's not forgiveness at all. Once somebody did, someone made a mistake and they did something that hurt this other person, a friend. So he went to his friend and he said, I'm very sorry for making this mistake. I didn't mean it. I hope you'll forgive me. And the friend said, yes, no problem, I forgive you. And a few days later, that friend said, you know, the other day you did something, but I forgave you. Do you remember? So he said, yeah, I remember. He said, okay. Then a few days later again, he brought it up. He said, you know, you did that thing, it really hurt me, but I forgave you. Do you remember? Said, yes, I remember. He said, okay, fine. Then again, a few days later, again he asked him. Then that man said, you forgave me, why do you keep bringing it up? He said, yeah, I forgave you, but I don't want you to forget it. I have not forgotten. Forgive and forget means forgive and forget. It's done, gone, move on. Kshama. Then this beautiful quality of dhriti. Dhriti means fortitude. In life, whenever we take anything up, right? Whenever we decide on anything, to pursue anything, to work toward any goal, there are obstacles. It is natural. In fact, sometimes we feel it's unnatural. Nothing has gone wrong. What's happening? Usually so many things go wrong. How come nothing is going wrong? So naturally, there are obstacles. If there aren't obstacles we face externally, then we face internal obstacles. So our own mind has doubt. Why am I doing this? Can I do it? Do I really want to do it? Etc. And even if there is no doubt, then in our pursuit of our goals, sometimes we just get tired. I've been working towards this for so long, and I'm still not there. What will allow us to keep going? That is this dhriti. Dhriti is the ability to continue pursuing one's goal, even in the face of fatigue, in the face of obstacles, in the face of challenges. This thought that I will keep going, I will not give up. Some things should be given up on. Foolish pursuits, things that are bad for us. But when we have set a goal, especially in this spiritual quest, sometimes we feel like I'm not seeing results. I've been doing sadhana, I've been studying, I'm not seeing results. So what will allow us to keep pursuing our goal is this dhriti. We develop the ability to say, I will keep going. I'm not going to give up on whatever I have, whatever goal I have set for myself. And this is so important, especially in this field, because if we can start off with this, then no obstacle, no challenge can stop us in our path. And in fact, they become learning opportunities. If we know that something is not going to stop me, then it just becomes a speed bump. It means I have to slow down, I have to look more carefully, and after it's done, I continue. I continue on my path, I continue doing whatever I need to do. So dhriti is this fortitude which we have when we have this conviction that this is what I need to do, and I will keep going as long as I need to. So this becomes a great support for all of us in our sadhana and our life in general. Okay, now there are three remaining: Shaucham, Adroha, and Na Atimanita. Shaucham means purity. Purity meaning physical and mental. How do we develop mental purity? So many things we have discussed. And physical means you keep yourself clean. That's very simple. Yourself and your surroundings. Right? That also helps. Purity. Then adroha. Adroha, absence of hatred. So hatred happens when we allow dislike to intensify. When those preferences that we have, they become very strong, then that dislike turns into hatred. And that hatred cannot exist when we have compassion for other beings. It should not. So sometimes we have this, we have these negative feelings and we wonder how we are to get rid of them and develop the positive. Actually, if we focus on developing the positive, the negative can slowly drop away by itself. You're not giving it thought, you're not giving it time, you're focusing on the positive. So it can drop off by itself. Finally, na atimanita. Mana means pride. Atimana means excessive pride. So interesting, he doesn't say not to have pride. He says not to have excessive pride. And how is pride helpful? So when we have developed a positive identity, then that identification can be very helpful to hold on to. Right? So if we identify and say, I am a seeker, I am a sadhaka, then that identification can help us if we hold on to it. So whenever we have any positive identity, if it helps us to live our life in the right way, to practice all of these other values that have been mentioned, then that is a helpful identification. It's a helpful kind of pride. When it becomes unhelpful is when it starts expressing as negative qualities in our behavior, in our speech, in our thought. So we develop a positive identity and we hold on to that. That can help us. So we've seen so many qualities here, but the most kind of prominent, the important ones were the first three. Abhayam, fearlessness, sattva samshuddhi, so the purity of intention and action, and jnana yoga vyavasthiti, abidance in knowledge and wisdom. And there's that very famous story of a young boy who is listening to his father or grandfather telling a story. And the story was about two wolves fighting. I'm sure many of you have heard this. So the grandfather was describing what's happening. This one does this one does that. Finally, the grandson asked this question. Which one wins? Because one is representative of our positive qualities, one is representative of our negative qualities. So the grandson is listening and he said, well, which one wins? And the grandfather says, whichever one you feed. If we feed our negativities, they will grow. If we feed these positives, they will grow. We identify them, we feed them, allow them to grow, allow them to displace the negativities. And if it's not there, then we find the seed for it and we water it and we look after it and we allow it to grow within ourselves. And then we will have that kind of personality which will allow us to achieve the highest goal in life. That is ultimately what we are all searching for. And these values are invaluable in helping us do that. Okay. So we'll conclude here with the closing prayer. And then there are some announcements, so please do stay on. It will just be a couple of minutes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Thank you so much, Shripriya ji. If you enjoyed this series of talks on chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, then why not join our monthly Bhagavad Gita class with Dr. Ramesh Bhatni? This is a unique opportunity to further discover the wisdom contained in this sacred and practical text. The next class will take place online on Friday, 1st of May at 8 p.m. Please join by subscribing to the Living Through Gita YouTube channel, where you can also find the previous classes. This year's offering to Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda on his birthday is a unique online Raj Upachar. From the confines of our home, from the temples of our hearts, the Chinmaya global family will offer him gratitude. Members from all wings and projects Shishu Vihar to Vanaprastha, cord to Chinmaya Vidyalayas, will participate in a variety of creative ways spread over 2 sessions. Chinmaya Mission UK will be participating in the second session, which will be from 1:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. UK time on Friday, 8th May. Join the celebrations by subscribing to our global YouTube channel, Chinmaya Channel. Please join Healing Our Earth for their global online prayer and meditation tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Brahmacharini Shripriya Chaitanya will be doing a meditation at 1 p.m., followed by Dr. Bhatni leading a session at 3:30 p.m. A message from Pujya Swami Swarupananda, Global Head of Chinmaya Mission, will be broadcast at 4:30 p.m. You can join on the link on screen. There is an invaluable opportunity to have a live satsang with Pujya Guruji Swami Tejomananda every day. Guruji is giving talks in English based on Katha Upanishad, a unique Upanishad based on a dialogue between a young boy Nachiket and the Lord of Death himself. Talks take place daily from 3 p.m. UK time, and you can join by subscribing to Chinmaya Channel. As well as talks from Guruji, the live talks from Pujya Swami Swarupananda, Global Head of Chinmaya Mission, continue. Every day at 12:30 p.m. UK time, Swamiji is guiding us on how we can outthink uncertainty based on Adi Shankaracharya's Bhaja Govindam. Join by subscribing to our global YouTube channel, Chinmaya Channel. Not to be left out, there is also an opportunity for children to reflect on our scriptures. Let your child listen, enjoy, and reflect as Pujya Swami Swarupananda narrates enchanting stories from our scriptures. The session takes place on Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. UK time, but like all the videos mentioned, they're available to watch at any time on our global YouTube channel, Chinmaya Channel. Our UK Swaranjali group is hosting a daily online chanting session to bring positive vibrations in our lives. The sacred prayers are chanted daily from 6 p.m. and you can join on our Facebook page, Chinmaya Swaranjali UK. Despite being at home, there's no need to miss out on your spiritual study. Chinmaya Mission UK have moved study classes online. Please go to our website to see a list of all available classes, and everyone is welcome to join. Details of all the events mentioned today can be found on the website. Hari Om.
Hari Om, just a final announcement. If you would like to offer Guru Dakshina for future activities of Chinmaya Mission, and you've enjoyed and benefited from these talks, you can do so by going to the chinmayabooks.com website. So that is chinmayabooks.com. There is a page for donation. So you can fill out that form and offer Guru Dakshina through there. Chinmaya Mission UK will also be fundraising for charities that are supporting vulnerable individuals in this time where a lot of people are suffering because of COVID. So if you would like your Guru Dakshina to go towards that, please make a note when you are donating online, just to say that this is for the CMUK fundraiser, and that money will go towards charities that are supporting vulnerable people at this time. Okay, thank you, Hari Om.